welcome to Hartika Reads. And today we are going to talk about Jhumpa Lahiri's acclaimed novel, The Namesake. It's one of my favorites from the author. And in this series on The Namesake, we will go chapter by chapter and we'll do an in depth analysis of the novel. But first, let's talk about Jhumpa Lahiri for a while. So, Jhumpa Lahiri is a Pulitzer Prize winning author, and she is known for her evocative storytelling and exploration of diasporic identity. She was born in London to Bengali parents and then raised in the United States. Her writing often reflects the tension between cultures, the quiet struggle of immigrants, and the emotional intricacies of family life. What I personally enjoy in Lahiri's writing is how that there's this keen attention to detail, how very ordinary, very mundane things are looked at in such intensity that it becomes extraordinary in quality. And this becomes all the more important because it's the ordinariness which we live through every day, which we consume every day. And this stands true for this particular novel, which we are going to discuss today. The namesake follows the life of Gogol Ganguly, who is the son of Bengali immigrants Ashok and Ashima, as he grows up in America, grappling with his name, his heritage, and his identity. The novel spans decades, moving from Calcutta to Cambridge, from childhood to adulthood, and from alienation to acceptance. At its heart, the namesake is a story about belonging to a name, to a family, and a culture. It's about the invisible threads that tie us to our past, even when we try to cut them loose. So, throughout these series, we will analyze the namesake through various lenses to uncover its depth and complexity. We will explore themes of hybridity, cultural displacement, and the immigrant experience. We will also focus on Gogol's identity crisis, emotional development, and the symbolism of his name. We will also examine Ashima's journey from dependence to independence and the roles of women in the narrative. And most importantly, we will look at Lahiri's minimalist prose, her use of symbolism, and the narrative structure. The first chapter begins with Ashima, who is pregnant and is preparing a snack for herself. So I'll read through the novel for you. On a sticky August evening, 2 weeks before her due date, Ashima Ganguly stands in the kitchen of a Central Square apartment, combining Rice Krispies and planter peanuts and chopped red onion in a bowl. She adds salt, lemon juice, the slice of green chili pepper, wishing there were mustard oil to pour into the mix. Ashima has been consuming this concoction throughout her pregnancy, a humble approximation of the snack sold for pennies on Calcutta sidewalks and on railway platforms throughout India, spilling from newspaper cones. Even now that there is barely space inside her, it is the one thing she craves. Now, this quote introduces Ashima's emotional and cultural longing for home. The improvised snack, made from Rice Krispies, Planters peanuts, and chopped onions, it symbolizes her attempt to recreate familiarity in a foreign land. It sets the tone for the theme of nostalgia and cultural adaptation. Soon after this, Ashima goes into labor and she calls out her husband, but she doesn't use his name. Ashima never thinks of her husband's name when she thinks of her husband, even though she knows perfectly well what it is. She has adopted his surname but refuses, for propriety's sake, to utter his first. It's not the type of thing Bengali wives do. Like a kiss or caress in a Hindi movie, a husband's name is something intimate and therefore unspoken, cleverly patched over. And so, instead of saying Ashok's name, she utters the interrogative that has come to replace it, which translates roughly as, "Are you listening to me?" Now, this quote highlights the subtle cultural codes that govern Ashima's behavior. Her silence is not just about propriety, it's about preserving identity in a world that demands constant assimilation. It also subtly introduces the novel's central theme, the power and significance of name, by showing how names are treated with reverence and intimacy. After this, Ashima and Ashok go to Mount Auburn Hospital, wherein again the narrative captures the alienating immigrant experience. Ashima's solitude during childbirth reflects the emotional isolation of immigrants, especially women who must navigate motherhood without the support of extended family. But nothing feels normal to Ashima. For the past 18 months, ever since she's arrived in Cambridge, nothing has felt normal at all. It's not so much the pain which she knows somehow she will survive, it's the consequence motherhood in a foreign land. For it was one thing to be pregnant, to suffer the queasy mornings in bed, the sleepless nights, the dull throbbing in her back, the countless visits to the bathroom. Throughout the experience, in spite of a growing discomfort, she had been astonished by her body's ability to make life, exactly as her mother and grandmother and all her great grandmothers had done. That it was happening so far from home, unmonitored and unobserved by those she loved, had made it more miraculous still. But she's terrified to raise a child in a country where she's related to no one, where she knows so little, where life seems so tentative and spare. Now, in the narrative, we move on to Ashok, who is a doctoral student at MIT. And as he waits for the birth of his child, he reflects on a traumatic event from his youth, a train accident that nearly killed him. Now, as we readers, we are transcended to Ashok's past, which is crucial for the story. So, Ashok was a university student in Calcutta and he was passionate about books, especially Russian literature. One day, while traveling by train to visit his grandmother, he meets Ghosh, a fellow passenger, a man who had once lived abroad, and he urges Ashok to do the same. He says to him, pack a pillow and a blanket and see as much of the world as you can. You will never regret it. It will never be a bad investment. Now, this quote from Ghosh is more than a travel advice. It's a philosophy of life. It plants a seed in Ashok's mind. The idea that life is meant to be explored, that comfort and safety are not the only goals. Ghosh's words echo throughout Ashok's journey, especially after what happens next. Moving on, Ashok during his train journey was reading Nikolai Gogol's The Overcoat, and later that night, tragedy strikes. The train derails in the middle of the night, killing many passengers. Ashok is critically injured, buried under wreckage, unable to move or speak, but a single page from the overcoat becomes his lifeline. He could not feel the lower half of his body, and so was unaware that the mangled limbs of Ghosh were draped over his legs. Eventually, he saw the cold, unfriendly blue of earliest morning, the moon and a few stars still lingering in the sky. The pages of his book, which had been tossed from his hand, fluttered in two sections a few feet away from the train. The glare from a surge lantern briefly caught the pages, momentarily distracting one of the rescuers. Nothing here, Ashok heard someone say. Let's keep going. But the lantern's light lingered, just long enough for Ashok to raise his hand, a gesture that he believed would consume the small fragment of life left in him. He was still clutching a single page of the overcoat, crumpled tightly in his fist, and when he raised his hand, the wad of paper dropped from his fingers. Wait, he heard a voice cry out. The fellow by that book. I saw him move. Now, this moment is pivotal. The book becomes a symbol of survival and later a symbol of identity. Ashok's life is saved by literature, literally, and this memory will shape his son's future. Ashok survives, but the experience leaves him physically and emotionally scarred. He carries the trauma silently, never fully sharing its depth with others, not even Ashima. Yet it transforms him. Although it is Ashima who carries the child, he too feels heavy with the thought of his life and the life about to come from it. He was raised without running water, nearly killed at 22. Again, he tastes the dust on his tongue, sees the twisted train, the giant overturned iron wheels. None of this was supposed to happen, but no, he had survived it. This quote is rich in existential reflection. Ashok's survival and migration are framed as rebirths, and the birth of his son becomes a continuation of that miracle. It also introduces the theme of transformation through trauma. He was born twice in India and then a third time in America. Three lives by 30. For this, he thanks his parents and the parents of their parents. He does not thank God. He openly reveres Marx and quietly refuses religion. But there's one more dead soul he has to thank. He cannot thank the book. The book has perished, as he nearly did, in scattered pieces in the earliest hours of an October day in a field 209 kilometers from Calcutta. Instead of thanking God, he thanks Gogol, the Russian writer who had saved his life. Now, this line is deeply metaphorical. His first birth is biological, his second is survival from the accident, and the third is his reinvention as an immigrant in the United States. Each phase marks a transformation, a shedding of one identity and the beginning of another. And with this, chapter one ends. So do follow for more content. Until then, bye bye.